Okay, so people hear the word ESG, and in sustainability, everyone loves an acronym. Like you have the SDGs, you have ESG, and ESG, the E stands for environmental. And the environmental aspect of ESG is how a company relates to the planet and the environment. And this is their energy consumption, it's their emissions, it's their waste, and it's their use of natural resources. So when you're thinking of the E in ESG, you're thinking of all the ways that a company or even you as an individual relates to the world around you and the things that you're taking from the earth. Um, the S is the social aspect. So first you have environmental, then you have social. And like Jose said, this is where it often gets forgotten. People say ESG, 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 and everyone thinks environmental. But no, there's two other aspects of ESG that are equally as important and that actually make an even bigger difference because it relates to us as individuals and as employees. So the social aspect is how a company treats people. And that's not just their employees, but it's their customers, it's their suppliers, and it's the communities in which these companies work. A lot of companies have a very big impact on the communities they work in. So we want to make sure that the social aspect is not forgotten as part of the ES. And then you have the G, and the G is the governance of a company. And this is really important because this is the governance of a company is how they make the decisions that are going to affect the environment and affect the social aspect of it. So with governance, we're talking about the leadership, who's on the board, who's the CEO, what is the corporate values of an organization. And that includes their ethics, their transparency, their accountability, and their decision making. So how this company is run affects all of the aspects of it. And what ESG is hoping to do is to report on the risk assessment of a company. It is about risk mitigation and about building resilience and long-term value for a company. So when people talk about, our ESG, that is what they're talking about. They're talking about the environment, the social, and the governance of a company in order to be able to evaluate their risks, their long-term value, and the resilience of that company in a workplace over time. When I talk to people about ESG, they immediately think regulation and reporting. And their biggest fear is, oh my gosh, I have to report on ESG. I don't know what to do. And they start to panic. Uh, so, but it's better, I think, to start from the beginning, which is what is the reason for ESG and why do you want to work with it and why, and then it makes the regulation and the reporting a lot easier because you know why you're doing it. It's not just a accounting requirement. It is something that you care about. It's values driven. And that's another reason why I think that the environmental part of ESG is so dominant when people think of it. It's because it's the easiest thing to measure and it's external. When you talk about your social impacts, then you're talking about measuring how you impact people, and that's so much harder to measure. Like how am I being a good employer? Oh, that's a little bit more nuanced. Or how do I have good governance? And the easiest thing to do is like make sure that you have a diversified board. But oftentimes companies don't want to do that. So it's easier to take the thing that's farthest away that you can count because it's external versus something that is internal and it's deeply embedded in the values of your company that you have to adjust. So anyway, I think that that's such an interesting question because it matters, and the S and the G matter just as much as the environment because it's how we are as a company and as individuals that affect the environment. It always starts with us and then goes towards the things we do. So Great question. So when you're talking about ESG and you're a business and oftentimes people say, okay, I need to, I need to, I need to meet the regulations, but that's so boring.
Yeah.
Facts and figures, and those are important because that's how you measure your progress going forward. People don't talk about when they're say their profitability. They say, they don't go into the details of the Excel spreadsheet. They say we increased our performance over the last quarter. It's the same thing with ESG. You want to be able to see where you started and then tell the compelling story of where you're going. So I want to be net zero. I started at, emissions rates that were, bonkers. And every year over the last 5 years, I've been able to decrease my CO2 emissions. I've been able to hire new people that are more diverse so that I have new perspectives. I've been able to make the communities in which we work in, we've been giving back. And that's a more compelling story. That's a funner story to tell. So I think that we would be able to get people more excited about reporting on their ESG if they knew that it's part of a bigger story. This is a hero's journey. You started here and it was, you
Yeah.
know, think apocalyptic. And then you're going towards this beautiful valley and you're going to have obstacles and you have to take that first step, which is looking at your basic lowest level. Like Jose said, you want to take that minimum requirement and then slowly build to there so that by the time you reach your goal, you're feeling like a victorious warrior who is doing good for the people and the planet. And your governance is like, this is what leadership looks like.
Yeah.
That's the story that we should be
Yeah.
telling. And
Definitely.
it's such a beautiful example of how good governance, the G part of ESG, makes a difference. When you have a leadership that says, I value my employees, that social aspect, I'm going to provide subsidized gym memberships, or I'm going to provide time out of your 40-day work week that's like a little bonus so that you can exercise or you can have it, or that gives family leave to make sure that you can grieve when something tragic happens in your life. That shows good governance, and it increases employee happiness, productivity,
Exactly.
retention. These are all risks that get mitigated by good governance decision, and that decision is to prioritize um, your people, the people who work in your business. Um, and you having that, even having healthy food in your school, in your work cafeteria. And all the best companies know this. That's why Apple provides food for their employees, like healthy, natural, organic food with lots of options. That's why they have gyms at their things. That's why they have a health care or child care for their female employees. They have menstrual products in their bathrooms, in all of their bathrooms, um, because it makes a difference and it makes employees feel seen and more productive and feel like they have embraced the values of their company. And you're a perfect example of that. Like you were burnt out and then you started taking care of it.
Exactly.
And that translates all across the board. And when you're a better person, you can care about the environment more. You
Yeah.
can have the mental space instead of working.
So can you remember what was it that turned this thing around? Why did you focus on that?
Well, I can tell you how I got started in sustainability. I was doing my master's degree in global health, and there was a one-day section on the Millennium Development Goals. And these were 8 goals that were started in the year 2000 to 2015. And they were 8 very specific goals about ending poverty and reducing world hunger and like 8 goals. Anyway, what struck me the most is that within this 15-year time span, because these goals were focused on these global challenges, they were able to like reduce global poverty by 50% in 15 years. And I was like, what in the world? By focusing on the problem and having a framework for people to work towards a goal, they have been able to reduce um, something that has been existing for millennia by a very significant number. And when we looked at these Millennium Development Goals, and the accomplishments that they made in just a short period of time, I thought, oh, that's so interesting. But then right as I was finishing my master's degree, then came the Sustainable Development Goals. And I just loved these comprehensive frameworks of these are the world's biggest challenges, and this is how we start to solve them. This is how we break them down into 17 goals and 169 targets, um, because it was something that you could work with. It was a very distinct goal framework. And when I started to work with that, I started to work with politicians at teaching sustainability for uh, a charity. And it was exciting. It was so funny because you could see people thinking like, huh, I haven't really thought about all of these problems, but because they were just 17 problems and ways to solve them, and it was a framework, people could do things. People like structure. And that's what ESG is. It's a type of structure for you to put your problems in a in a in a matrix, or in a way to measure it and to measure your outcomes, and it's a way to move from point A to point B to point C to point D, so you know where you're starting, you know where you're going, and there's a way to track it. People love that. People do very well with that. So I got excited about working in sustainability because, when I care about all of the challenges that we face in the world, I want to solve them. I'm excited about solving them. But when it comes to ESG specifically, it was like, again, it is a framework that you can put your problems in and work through them. It's like a math problem, and you can solve math problems. You just have to put in all of the right numbers, and you have to think about the process of how you get from A to B. And sometimes it doesn't work, so you have to go back and you have to redo the math. So I just love that there is a way to work with these. And that's how I started working with sustainability, by being inspired by the progress we can make when we actually focus on what the problems are and how to solve them and start working together towards them. Yeah, let me start,
Okay.
because I'm excited about it, because like ESG, even this acronym, the environmental, the social, and the governance of a company, is risk mitigation. This is exciting. If I'm investing in a company, I want to know that that company has good governance, that cares about people, and that they are good for the environment. Because if they don't have those three components, I don't want to invest in them, because I have risk. I have risk that they're going to be polluting the waters that feed, a whole community. I have a risk that the employees aren't going to be treated well, and that everyone's going to leave, and I'm going to have this cost of an extra turnover. That the leadership is transparent and not corrupt and not doing shady deals, because that's my reputational risk. So if I put my money in this thing, so being good at ESG is an opportunity. It's an opportunity across all the boards. It's an opportunity for investment, and it's an opportunity for you to look at what you're doing as you're creating your business, to be more innovative, to be more efficient, to use your resources better. So if you're using your resources, like your natural resources, in a way that's in a circular economy, you're going to reduce your cost of getting those raw materials. You're going to create innovation as your operations and materials people figure out how to do more with less. Um, it is an opportunity. and it's cool and fun to be like, how good can we be? This is the essence of business. We want to maximize our profit, be the most efficient we can be, and we want to have this shiny, good personal image because that builds our brand, which builds more of our business. All of those things relate to ESG, and that is how you can position yourself as a leader, as a good business, and create more opportunity and create more value and more efficiency and more profit. Um, so I think we need to quit talking about ESG as a regulatory problem and start talking about it as it is a opportunity to do business better, to make the money that we want, to have the influence that we want, and to do better by our business and for their communities and for the planet. Like across the board, it is nothing but an opportunity. I don't know about you, Jose, but I'm not very romantic about it. I'm optimistic. I'm looking for that ESG love out there in the world where, but
Uh,
but
yeah.
it's existing. It's existing. I think that we as individuals, it starts with us. It starts about of us caring about what we do for the environment, and the choices that we make, like Jose was saying about your food and your waste and your exercise and your transportation, like thinking about those things on an individual basis, then translate into a bigger context of your corporations and your businesses. But it starts with us, and there's things that we can do. We can make choices to not invest in companies that are polluting. We can make choices to not buy things that are made by companies that are harming people, and actually get curious about that and start looking. It's easy these days to just, Google or ChatGPT information about something if you're going to spend some money. Make better choices as an individual, and that trickles down to all aspects of our lives. And I think Jose is a really great example of that when he's talking about his mental health and working out. We need to work our ESG muscles. We need to build that muscle.